as I was reading your story, I also saw the development of something else, just a tenacity, getting knocked down and getting back up and having obstacles put in your way of something that you want. And you just keep jumping over them. You jump over them hurt, you jump over them hobbled, you just keep jumping over them. You're really not easily stopped, which of course becomes relevant over the past 2 years, right? And so to jump forward from the gymnastics to the start of your career at Levi's, and I should mention this is in San Francisco. That's where you've been based all this, past 20 plus years. But 22 years ago, you joined them in a junior position, marketing director, work your way up, chief marketing officer, global brand president. Clearly you're doing well. Your career's going well. And you say that during all this time, not only were they fine with you taking political positions online, a lot of companies don't like that. Levi's was fine with it, but even Levi's would take political positions. It's San Francisco based, so not particularly surprising, but all of that was A-okay up until more recently.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I mean, in all honesty, and I'm thinking, I'm ever evolving my views, which I think is good. I think, we always should stay open to new inputs. But I'll admit it was always one of the things I loved about the company. We used a phrase, profits through principles, take the harder right over the easier wrong. And I think especially when it pertained to employees, it was really meaningful to me. And it was one of the reasons I stayed there so long. It was the first Fortune 500 company to offer same-sex partner benefits. That's way before anybody ever talked about marriage equality. And they certainly got blowback for these things. It was only quite recently when we started, I should stop saying we, when they started talking out, from not just internally, but to our consumers and our fans about stances that we were taking, inclusive of LGBTQ rights and equality, women's equality, civic engagement through, voting. That was a big one. And so, yes, we were not shy about it, sometimes taking controversial stances. And so that's what's all the more troubling about this, because it can't be said that, well, we just don't take stances. We don't speak publicly. We do. It's just this. It's literally what I was saying. I mean, we ran a campaign that I led. I was the architect of, called Use Your Voice. And, I meant it. I meant it when I led that campaign. I meant stand up, say it, say the thing, say what you care about, make a difference. Individuals can make a difference.
And yet when they were pushing it, they never dreamed that you would use it.
And I wasn't
to
prescribing
push politics they didn't believe in.
That's right. And I wasn't prescribing the content of Use Your Voice. I was asserting the value of simply using one's voice. And, it just became very clear in the last 2 years that, oh no, don't say that. Mm-hmm. Not that content.
And in particular, what you were upset about was something that is now universally condemned, pretty much universally, which is school closures. It's not even like you were out on the thinnest reed, saying, I don't want vaccine mandates. That would be more controversial in left-wing circles. But don't close the schools. That was what they were so upset about?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's sort of hard to swallow about all of this. And, I have been very focused on schools and kids in particular. I have views on some of the other aspects of all of this. But this has been an extension of child advocacy that started when I wrote my book about the abuses in the sport of gymnastics, and then made a film in 2020, Athlete A, or that came out in 2020, which further exposed the abuses and the crimes of Larry Nassar and featured the brave survivors who basically sent him to prison. So I just viewed this as an extension of that. It's children. I don't even view that as politics. I mean, kids, that's not political. Isn't that something we can all agree on? Children and their right to a fair and equal education. It doesn't, people sort of keep deeming this political speech. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I never really even thought of it as political. It's like kids getting to go to school. Really? That's political? And, I very quickly became aware that when I first started, it was March of 2020. It was immediate. Because it just seemed so obvious to me that this was wrong. The age
and that remote learning was a joke.
Yeah, and that the age stratification of risk, I mean, following what was happening in Italy closely, the median age of death was 81. Children were gratefully spared. And so it didn't seem controversial to me. That's how naive and stupid, I guess, I was. I quickly learned that it was when I was, arguing with friends and family on Facebook. I sort of stopped going on Facebook and I went over to Twitter where I could argue with strangers, essentially.
How old are your kids now?
Well, I have 4 kids. So I have 2 older, 21 and 18, who are in college. And then I have 2 younger, 7 and 5.
Okay. And so, yeah, you're watching your 7 and 5-year-old do absolutely nothing. I mean, it's what they were doing. Remote schooling is totally pointless. It doesn't get much better as they get older. But I had a 7-year-old during the lockdown, and he absolutely did nothing. I mean, it was completely pointless. It was like online babysitting.
Yeah, it's absurd. I mean, for my child is 7 now, who's in first grade. We moved to Denver and he's in first grade here. We came in the middle of kindergarten last year so he could have some of a first year of school. It was a joke. I mean, we didn't make him do it. Like, he can't read. How's he going to type and do Zoom school? It's like the dumbest thing ever. And, if you could say that a 6-year-old was depressed, which I think you can, we were just getting more and more concerned. And, we were a family living in a nice apartment, but an apartment with no yard in San Francisco. The playgrounds were closed for 9 months. Playgrounds. It was just cruel. And California was just, California schools stayed shut longer than any other state in the country. I could sort of accept it in the spring of 2020, kind of, when you could argue we didn't know that much. By fall of 2020, when the private schools all opened and the public schools, which my kids attend, stayed closed, then I was like, well, this is just classist ridiculousness. Like, how can anyone stand for this? How can we think this is okay? How can we care about equality and only let the wealthy kids go to school? And my kids do have privilege, and I know they'll be okay. And we were able to, we have good Wi-Fi and all that, but they do go to public school. And I've always wanted them to go to public school. I believe in the public school system. But in the fall, it became clear schools weren't going to open even then. And I just became incensed. And then in the spring, when they they prioritized teachers for vaccination, promised that would be the end, and they still didn't open the schools. That's when I couldn't take it anymore.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.